It's a robbery. I'm talking to an agent right now that's telling me Tyus Jones is a $15 million point guard.
They got a starting point guard, and yeah, I said starting, and we're going to talk about it, in Tyus Jones, obviously with the Wizards last year, has a wealth of experience in the league. Before we get started, it's the PHNX Suns show. I'm Espo, that's Flex, and that is Erik, usually behind the Mac, but I brought him in today because we got something to talk about, and just because you thought you were going to get a weekend doesn't mean that we do. Gentlemen, Flex, let's start with you. What were your initial thoughts on the Tyus Jones signing?
Listen, Erik is sitting right there. I knew all week something really big potentially could be in the works. The Suns did a really good job. I'm going to say this: Suns did a really good job of keeping this under wraps because they knew who they were dealing with. They didn't want too many things to leak out. But this is a machine, brother. The Phoenix Suns are a machine when it comes to culture, recruiting, and getting people they want to come to Phoenix when people think it's impossible, right? When we came into this offseason, the first thing you heard about Tyus Jones was there's no way he can end up in Phoenix. Check him off your list, $15 million a year. He's a starting point guard. There's no way the Suns can pull this off, which sounds familiar. It sounds like the last 3 summers the Phoenix Suns have had. So once again, Matt Ishbia and the crew to show you why talent, evaluation, chemistry, continuity, culture, destination matters. The Phoenix Suns just got one of the best point guards in the entire National Basketball Association. And we'll talk about how that fits and how they'll go about integrating it. But yeah, you got to be excited, man, playing chess, not checkers.
Yeah, listen, it's so funny because you kind of think back to the new CBA and you're like, oh my gosh, just as the Suns get an owner that's going to spend money, now there's all these rules. If anything, it's kind of helping out the Suns now because you look at Monte Morris and Tyus Jones. Those are guys that under the old CBA would get like a higher, not veteran minimum contract, something the Suns could not really afford to offer. But now they're both coming here on prove-it deals, and even in Tyus Jones' statement saying, oh, I'm going to hit free agency next year, and I'm going to try to get my bag. So somehow, some way, Matt Ishbia, the Phoenix Suns, James Jones have all found a way to win when it kind of felt like it was the classic Suns, like, now we can spend money and now it's illegal to spend money. But that second apron doesn't even exist in Matt Ishbia's eyes. And that's not even talking about the basketball fit. Another assist to turnover ratio guy, somebody else who's going to protect the ball, who's going to help unlock Nurk, help unlock Mason Plumlee. Book is going to play off ball. Beal's going to play off ball. It's so exciting, Espo.
Look, he was easily the best point guard on the market, right? And we thought there's not a chance in hell that the Suns will get in on Tyus Jones. They just won't be able to afford him, right? And we saw the market, and the Suns went out. They got Monte Morris, who we all thought was a great signing for the bench. And then you thought, okay, well, they got Mason, they got Monte, they've solidified some spots. We can probably expect, unless they make some kind of trade, that this is it. And that's good. Great offseason for the most part when you add in the draft picks. And then you just watch the market kind of just stand still. We have not seen much of anything over the last couple of weeks. And there was guys like Tyus Jones, Chetty Osmond, other guys that are sitting out there that you thought would go for a decent amount of money, and they didn't. They've just sat there. Yeah. And I even said yesterday on the show, Flex, to you, I was like, well, could this trade of David Roddy yesterday be a Tyus Jones kind of thing? Yeah. Based on nothing other than you're looking at the market, you're reading the tea leaves, and you go, this team can still use another guard if they can find one. And it happened today, and it happened quick. And you brought up, Erik, assist to turnovers. Jones had an assist to turnover ratio last year of 7.35, the highest of any player in a season since individual turnovers were first tracked in 1977-78. And in that span, Jones has had 3 of the highest marks in a season at 7.04. 6.96, and then last year at 7.35. So you've got Tyus Jones, who's an assist to turnover master. You got Monte Morris, who's an assist to turnover master. And look, guys, what was one of the biggest problems for this team last year?
Turnovers.
And
no
then,
point guard play.
Yeah. I mean, and you look at it, they figured that out. They solidified the bench, and we'll get into what the rotations may look like here in a second. But this is if you don't think this is an A+ offseason, I don't know what to tell you. Out there on the internet, I don't care what team you're a fan of. You got to look at what the Suns did and say they got a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Let's talk. My man Joe Mama in the chat. Joe Mama in the chat says Flex gassing him up a little too much. Let me talk to you, Joe Mama. Okay. Espo just broke it down. I literally just said he's one of the best point guards in the entire National Basketball Association. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. 7.3 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. When you think, a lot of people think point guards and they're like, oh, you got all these flashy stats. That's what a point guard stats are supposed to look like. A point guard sets the team up, gets you in your offense, and has a high assist to turnover ratio. And this guy is doing it at an all-time high level. So yes, the Phoenix Suns for $3.3 million might have gotten the best pure point guard in the NBA in regards to assist to turnover ratio. And the best time to get a job, the best time to get a job is when you have a job, right? The Suns were brilliant in the sense, this is facts, right? If you need a job and you got a job, you're going. The great part about this was that the Suns knew the market was going to dry out. I'm on the phone right now talking to an agent that I trust, and I actually spoke to this person in Vegas, and we talked about Tyus in Vegas, and his exact words were, the market's going to dry out, Flex, and there aren't too many landing spots, okay? And so the Suns were smart by saying, let's get Monty in locked in. So we know at the very least we got a guy. Right? We got a guy that's going to do what we need to do. And then at that point, we can be super aggressive, but not desperate, and put ourselves in a situation where we can land a guy like Tyus Jones. So once again, you can say what you want about James Jones, Matt Ishby, and how they go about business, man, but this is some bad boys moving silence type stuff.
And I think part of the reason why people are a little bit shocked when they hear the term, one of the best point guards in the game. I think sometimes you can conflate being a really good player versus playing a position really well. Somebody can be one of the best shooters in the league, but not one of the best players. Look at Buddy Hield, right? One of the best shooters probably of all time, but everything else in his game is lacking a little bit. So you don't really put him on that same pedestal. With Tyus Jones, he shoots efficiently. He passes efficiently. He's a little bit undersized, but he would probably be, as far as starting point guards go, in the 20 to 30 range. But everything that he does is so perfect for the Phoenix Suns, and it's exactly what they need. You don't want a point guard that comes in and takes a bunch of shots. You want somebody who can hit shots efficiently, but look to pass the ball and do it the smart way. And like you said, Flex, they got two of them, and they did it in a way where now every time one of them's on the court, in a healthy way, they're competing with each other, because both of those guys are going to hit the same market next year, and they don't want vet mins. So, and if you want to talk about the value of Tyus Jones, what paints the picture, Espo, is the fact that out of all these free agent signings, he gets a full statement, right? It wasn't just Tyus Jones is signing with the Phoenix Suns on a veteran minimum. It was, no, we need to explain why somebody who brings this type of value would sign for the lowest possible contract available.
Tyus went out of his way to explain it himself. Yeah, Woj gave that whole quote graphic to ESPN, which we'll bring up in a second. But let's bring up his stats from last year for those of you that aren't familiar with his game. To steal a Shaq quote, last year, 12 points per game, 7.3 assists, 2.7 rebounds on 48.9% shooting. Oh, and he can hit from behind the arc too. He's a 41.4% shooter from deep also last season with the Wizards. This is a guy that for years was kind of known as one of the best backup point guards in the game, got the opportunity to start, and then now just had the best assist to turnover ratio in the history of the game. So, I think they got a pure point guard. And for a lot of the offseason, I like to say this phrase, You have Nordstrom taste, but only a dollar store budget, right? Well, guess what? The Suns just robbed Nordstrom. All right.
Yeah.
They said, you know what? We'll leave the $1.50 we got, but we're going to take the expensive piece of clothing that you've got in the store. And look, this is exactly what this team needed. Nobody thought they were going to be able to get. And I'm sorry, but when you look at it, this seismically changes the way that the West looks now. I mean, this seismically changes all of that, and I bet it significantly will change the odds as well. Suns were a plus 3,000 to win it all. They were, I think, a plus 1,500 at our friends over at Bet365 to win the West. I got to check in, but I'm guessing those odds are going to shift significantly as well because they have gotten much better. No longer can you say the Suns don't have a point guard. They got 2 point guards in this roster now.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm looking at the chat, and they're saying I wouldn't say robbed. It's a 1-year deal. No, it's a robbery. I'm talking to an agent right now that's telling me Tyus Jones is a $15 million point guard in the NBA. Now, let me put some context behind this. I'm actually reading texts while we're doing this show right here, okay? And there's people going to say, well, if he's a $15 million point guard, why did he get $3.3 million? You know why? Because Tyus Jones understands situation, understands that he could have gotten that $15 million, but he's probably worth more with the new salary cap going up and the way the CBA is changing. And he wants to win. This is a guy that actually turned down more money for an opportunity to bet on himself and win basketball games.